Two National Guard soldiers were shot on Wednesday near the White House in what officials described as a targeted ambush. The two soldiers are members of the West Virginia National Guard and were part of a high-visibility patrol a few blocks from the White House. At a press briefing, Metropolitan Police Assistant Chief Jeff Carroll said that the shooting happened at around 2:15 in the afternoon.
It appears, like I said, to be a lone gunman that raised a firearm and ambushed these members of the National Guard, and he was quickly taken into custody by other National Guard members and law enforcement members.
Carroll said that after an exchange of gunfire, other National Guard troops were able to subdue the shooter, who is now in custody after suffering gunshot wounds during the attack. FBI Director Kash Patel said the two soldiers remain in critical condition. A Justice Department official said investigators identified the suspect as Ramanullah Lakhanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan national from Washington state. The official said the attack is being investigated as an act of terrorism. Lakhanwal came to the U.S. in 2021 on a special visa program for Afghans who assisted the U.S. during the war and were vulnerable to Taliban reprisals after the U.S. withdrawal. But he overstayed his visa and is in the country illegally, according to the official. Donald Trump responded in a video posted on Truth Social.
As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price.
The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services said late Wednesday that they have stopped processing all immigration requests relating to Afghan nationals, following further comments by Trump.
We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country.
Speaking to reporters, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said more troops would be deployed to Washington to, quote, secure the capital.
And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army, to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C.
National Guard troops have been in Washington since Trump deployed them in August, in the face of opposition from local officials and Democrats. Trump has repeatedly claimed crime has vanished from the Capitol because of the deployment, an assertion at odds with the police department's official statistics.
British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves hiked taxes in her budget plan on Wednesday. Workers, people saving for a pension and investors will all pay more tax to help Reeves meet borrowing targets. The country's fiscal watchdog, the Office for Budget Responsibility or OBR, cut its forecasts for growth in the British economy over the coming years. But in a closely watched moment for markets, it said the government will now have more than double its previous headroom for meeting its fiscal targets, even as it raises spending on welfare. The headroom refers to the amount of extra spending or tax cuts possible for the government while staying within its budget rules. The OBR said it now stood at roughly £22 billion or $28.9 billion in 5 years' time. It had forecast roughly around $11 billion earlier this year, a historically low level. The result was in large part due to more than £26 billion or $34.4 billion of fresh tax rises. Finance Minister Rachel Reeves.
No doubt we will face opposition again, but I have yet to see a credible or a fairer alternative plan for working people.
A fall in borrowing costs suggested investors were largely comfortable with the budget plan. The OBR had mistakenly released the budget before Reeves had given her speech, which Reuters first reported. It revealed the key announcements from the budget on taxes, economic growth and individual policy changes. Reeves had promised to take fair and necessary choices to improve the country and to speed up economic growth, but she also recognised unhappiness among voters. Some key details in her plan include a longer freeze on the thresholds at which people start to pay income tax and a higher rate of income tax. The generosity of pension incentives was scaled back, with social security charges on salary sacrifice pension contributions raising around $6.5 billion. There will also be higher tax rates on dividends, property and savings income. The authority of Reeves and Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been questioned within the centre-left Labour Party. Reeves said in her first budget last year she was returning stability to public finances. That after the shocks delivered by Brexit, the pandemic and the mini-budget crisis of former Conservative Prime Minister Liz Truss.
Dozens of people are dead and hundreds still missing in the Hong Kong district of Tai Po after a massive fire across several high-rises on Wednesday. That's according to authorities who said more than 12 hours after the fire began, firefighters were struggling to reach the upper floors of the 36-story blocks due to intense heat. 65-year-old Jason Kong lives in one of them and says he was watching his home burn after police barred him from returning, forcing him to leave his 10-year-old dog behind.
One neighbor said he still could not find his wife. Some said they are safe. I know some are still inside the building. Why is there no one saving them? Are we waiting for them? How should we deal with this? I know someone who has young children and elderly people in their family. I called him and he said he was still trapped inside the building.
Hong Kong leader John Lee told reporters a firefighter was among those killed and that 900 people were in shelters.
The priority is to extinguish the fire and rescue the residents who are trapped. The second is to support the injured. The third is to support and recover. Then, we'll launch a thorough investigation.
From the mainland, China's President Xi Jinping urged an all-out effort to extinguish the fire and to minimize casualties and losses, according to China's state broadcaster CCTV. The towers are part of a dense residential complex called Wangfuk Court, which includes 8 blocks and some 2,000 apartments. The cause of the blaze was not immediately known. However, the flames were fanned by the trademark green construction mesh and bamboo scaffolding often seen in casing construction in Hong Kong. The government had begun phasing out bamboo scaffolding in March for safety reasons. Online posts showed that Wangfuk Court had been undergoing renovations for a year. The fire marks Hong Kong's worst since November 1996, when 41 people died in a commercial building in the heart of the city's Kowloon area. That fire was later found to be caused by welding during internal renovations.
The Royal Thai Army airlifted critically ill patients on Wednesday from hospitals swamped by some of the region's worst flooding in years. Officials have reported dozens of deaths as heavy rains brought floods that swept through southern Thai provinces, as well as neighbouring areas in Malaysia and Indonesia. 3 days of torrential rain starting last week dumped record volumes on Hat Yai, Thailand's southern commercial hub. On Friday, the city received 13 inches of rain, its highest in a single day for 300 years. Provincial authorities said on Wednesday floodwaters in many areas were gradually receding, but currents remained strong, hindering rescue operations. While parts of Hat Yai were still suffering power outages, according to a Reuters reporter there. The Thai military has taken over relief efforts, mobilizing helicopters, boats, and even the country's only aircraft carrier to deliver relief aid and critical supplies and pluck stranded people from their flooded homes. More than 2.7 million people across 9 Thai provinces have been affected, the Interior Ministry said, and the government has made a public call for equipment, including boats and jet skis. Meanwhile, residents on the western Indonesian province of Aceh were bracing for more rain as weather officials said the storm system was moving away from Thailand towards Indonesia. The director of meteorology in Indonesia said there was another active tropical cyclone near the Philippines and that interaction between the two cyclones may have caused the region's severe flooding over the past few days. Torrential rain since Friday has triggered deadly flooding and landslides in Indonesia. And weather officials warned that more rain was expected over the next few days in Aceh and surrounding provinces.
The European Parliament called on Wednesday for the European Union to set minimum ages for children to access social media to combat a rise in mental health problems from excessive exposure. Parliament's resolution calls for an EU-wide ban on access for children under 16 to online platforms, video sharing sites, and AI companions without parental consent, and an outright ban for those younger than 13. The call, which is not binding, comes as Australia is poised to institute the world's first social media ban for children younger than 16 on December 10th. Denmark and Malaysia are also planning bans. It's not quite clear how the EU ban would work, given it is up to individual EU members to impose age limits. Parisian Christian Lima, a father of 3, questioned the decision on Wednesday.
Je pense que interdire, c'est peut-être un peu dur, un peu fort.
I think that banning it is perhaps a bit harsh, a bit extreme. We need to regulate it. We need to find ways and means perhaps to limit access, perhaps also to limit the time spent. We also need to work on parental responsibility because actually, we can decide a number of things at the highest levels. But above all, we should not absolve parents of their responsibilities regarding the protection of their own children.
The effects of social media on children's health and safety have become a growing global concern, with a number of companies facing lawsuits in the United States for their role in fueling a mental health crisis. Social media platforms including TikTok, Facebook, and Snapchat say people need to be at least 13 to sign up. Several EU countries have already put in place less strict rules like banning the use of mobile devices in classrooms and requiring parental consent to use social media. But child protection advocates say these controls are insufficient, and official data in several European countries show huge numbers of children under 13 have social media accounts.
In our world of planes, internet domains, and driverless automobiles, space weather has the potential to wreak havoc. And that's why scientists at the University of Surrey's Space Centre have teamed up with Britain's Met Office to work on this. Sarah is a radiation monitor. It can be attached to meteorological balloons with the aim of sharpening forecasts of solar storms that can threaten aircraft, power grids, and satellites. Dr. Ben Kluwer is a space weather model and system developer at the University of Surrey.
The Met Office will fit it to their standard meteorological balloons, the same the ones that go up and measure the pressure and the wind speed and things like that. And then it monitors the radiation environment up there by monitoring the particles that pass through it. And then it turns the different particles that have been counted. It then turns that into a dose rate that we can use for radiation protection purposes, much like you would in a hospital when you're going to have an X-ray, for example.
So what is space weather? Eruptions on the sun send bursts of high-energy particles and magnetic fields towards Earth that can disrupt radio links, satellite operations, and high-altitude flights. Kluwer said such events are expected to become more common around the current peak of the sun's 11-year activity cycle. Much larger storms, he warned, could cause serious disruption to modern infrastructure.
We haven't had a big event for 20 years. The last big ones were sort of pre-modern technology, in terms of the really small microelectronics. So we're trying to get the world ready for one of these events so it doesn't take all of our critical infrastructure offline.
The Sarah radiation sensors were initially launched to a height of nearly 20 miles on October 17th. Those launches were a proof of concept. But on November 11th, a powerful flare triggered what UK scientists said was one of the strongest ground-level enhancements of atmospheric radiation in about 20 years. Met Office teams were able to quickly deploy some of the sensors and gather first-of-its-kind data. Here's Met Office Senior Space Weather Manager Krista Hammond.
We're still analysing the collated data, but we do have it, and it's early indications so that it's promising, and no one's ever done something like this before. So it's going to be really invaluable for verifying our models so that we know that we're understanding the radiation environment as best we can.